So today on the show, we have Matt Lionetti from the agency in Toronto, Canada. Now, Matt is a real estate agent and content creator with the agency in Toronto. Matt has built his brand on funny, clever, and sometimes polarizing content that, whether you like it or not, demands your attention. Now, earning millions of organic views on social media, his unconventional approach has landed him on some of the biggest stages, speaking with Ryan Serhant, Gary Vaynerchuk, and Tom Ferry. Matt has forged his own path and become a fan favorite among agents and clients alike. Everyone, please go to Matt's website, which is mattlionetti.com, and that is MATTLIONETTI.com. Also, there's a link to that here in our show notes. And before I just bring on Matt, I want to let you know how we got introduced to him. So we are subscribers of this amazing service called Coffee and Contracts, which is in conjunction with The Broke Agent, which probably all of our listeners follow The Broke Agent on Instagram and Facebook. If you don't do, but Coffee and Contracts is one of their little side businesses, and they sent out something with one of Matt's videos, which I had not been familiar with Matt prior to, where it was a Matt sort of doing a parody or a satire of a Hallmark Christmas movie, which I'm sure all of our listeners know about these, and then using that as a showing that a realtor would be going through, and it is just brilliantly done. And we immediately, my producer and I were like, we got to book this guy. So we are so thrilled to have Matt on the show. So Matt, welcome.
Thank you so much. What an introduction. I haven't had an introduction like that before. That's fantastic.
And by the way, Matt also hosts a podcast, so I almost forgot to mention that. So Matt is a co-host of a really great show called Over Ask, which is The Broke Agent. Also, they have this show, and Matt hosts it with the owner of The Broke Agent. And by the way, the link to that, so everyone should subscribe to Over Ask. That is also in our show notes. So please subscribe there and check out their show. But Matt, tell us a little bit about why real estate, or how you got into real estate.
Yeah. So before this, I was a touring musician, and I toured right out of high school for years.
Wow.
And it just got so, I always said, like, when it stops being fun, I should maybe take a step back, because it was such a huge passion of mine for so many years. And I was hired to, go on tour with different artists and record for different artists. And I also taught music. And, for a musician, I was making a living, which a lot of musicians don't. So at least I had that. But then at the same time, I was watching like $1 Million Listing a lot. And I remember my then girlfriend, now wife, we're on vacation in Florida, and I remember the exact moment I knew I was going to get into real estate. We were in a cab, and our cab driver was bringing us through and telling us about all his investment properties. And this is like when I was big on $1 Million Listing and Ryan Serhant in particular. And right in that cab ride, I was like, I think I want to stop playing music and try real estate and like settle down a bit. I don't have to travel all the time and do that stuff, and go play a show for $200, like 7 hours away, and maybe get paid, maybe not, that type of thing. So when we got back from the vacation, I started my courses, and now I'm here. That was 6 years ago. I've been an agent for 5 years now.
Wow. And, when did you start? So really, music is your background, and but also, if you watch Matt's videos, he is an incredibly funny writer. And was comedy always a part of your life? I know music is. If you're watching us, you can see Matt has some albums on display, but he was a touring musician. Oh, by the way, before I ask about comedy, what instrument did you play?
I was guitar. So I taught every instrument, like at the music school I taught at, because I played drums and bass and guitar and piano and stuff. But guitar was my main instrument, and that's what I got hired for.
Yeah. And so you would tour. Did you have one particular band, or were you a guy that would go on tour when other bands needed guitar players?
Yeah. So at first I had my own band, and we tried our thing. And then after that ended, it was just kind of, just go play with whoever would hire me.
That's awesome. And then, so how did you start making funny videos? Because I would love to sit and talk to you about how you grew your business when you started without having a real estate background. but I really want to know about the comedy side of it because it is so unique and refreshing. And the broke agent is like a perfect sort of obvious partner for you with your podcast, because of course that's what they do as well. But there aren't many other players in that space. At least I haven't found many. I mean, there's a lot of agents that maybe try to be funny, and whether they succeed or not is another question. But you do succeed. So how did you? First of all, were you always a fan of comedy?
Yeah, always a fan. So like my dad is a hilarious person. And we would I remember so many weekends we would just stay in together and he would show me Richard Pryor, Robin
Yeah,
Williams,
sure,
like Eddie Murphy, like the
sure.
big, huge, stand-up comics. And then we would always watch movies. And we both gravitated towards comedy movies. So, I grew up watching like John Ritter and like super
Sure.
like, that kind of like Problem Child and
Sure.
Caddyshack and Back to School. So like always like I just loved comedy, but I never did anything with it. Like I've never acted before these videos. I've never wrote like a comedy skit before this, but it was just something that I loved so much. Always. Like I was always such a fan of comedy. I was a bit of like a class clown. Um and it just kind of like when I got into real estate, I was like, I got into it because I thought I had a good personality and I thought that's what I could really hang my hat on. And
Sure.
for the first 3 years of real estate, I ironically lost all my personality because I was trying to be something else. So I didn't start the videos till about 2 years ago. And that's when everything started taking off for me. Before that, I was doing nothing. It was terrible. So the comedy's always has been a big part of my life. Not really, it wasn't like I saw it and then I pursued a career in stand-up comedy or acting or anything, but I've just always been such a fan and really appreciated the art of comedy.
And let's talk about some of the videos that you've put together, because they are amazing. I've only seen them on YouTube. I imagine they're all over Facebook and Instagram and other social media outlets. But talk a little bit about some of your videos, and the response that you've received, and how has this helped grow your business as an individual agent?
Yeah. So the response has been mainly great, which I didn't know what to expect at first, because when you try something new, a lot of the times, and I do get this, people don't like it. They don't want anything that's different from what everyone else is doing. And I really kind of niche down. So I'll swear a lot in the videos. I really don't have any boundaries anymore when it comes to that. Some people get offended by that. It's never my intent to offend anyone. The way I grew up, swearing wasn't an issue. Like it's not offensive or anything. So I didn't think it was going to be a big issue, but that's mainly people say like, oh, you're making like a mockery, or you're giving, agents a bad reputation. And I was like, I don't know if you guys are aware, but like, we don't got the best fucking reputation to begin with, but like, it's just, I don't know. And then it's so funny because as soon as I niched down on the marketing, my whole business got broader. And you would think the opposite, but when you niche down and really focus on a specific thing, you get those people. And the people who don't like you, the people who do like you 10 times more, because those other people don't. And
good
I've
point.
I've just really niched down. And that's like anything. Anyone will tell you that in any business now. Niche down, find something to focus on. And then you're going to attract those, like-minded people, and you can be on your way.
So it's a really good piece of advice, is don't try to be all things to all clients or all potential clients, because the people that like you, who in particular are finding your content on social, they're following you on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, Instagram, etc., TikTok. You really don't need hundreds of thousands of followers to be a successful real estate agent making content, but you need to have a core group of people that like what you do. And you're right, there is a little bit of a like, I feel like I'm in the club now that likes your work. And part of me is like, well, I just know that his quality of content and his comedy is really strong. So, and if someone else were to say, oh, I don't think that's appropriate for a real estate agent, which nobody's ever said that to me, but if anyone did, I'd be like, oh no, that's why I like him, because I like that quality is always king, right? And so your quality control is really strong. The videos are amazing. The level of production is solid. The music, of course, I imagine you do a lot with the music because that's your background.
Yep.
But you're absolutely right about not needing everyone to like you, and even as I know sometimes your content could be considered polarizing, but it's never, to me, it's not polarizing at all. I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
And I think, boy, I'd love to hire a realtor like that, because it really shows your level of just sort of creativity. Whether you find it funny or not, it's incredibly professional. I don't know who wouldn't find it funny, but I think that's something that agents oftentimes are just afraid to do. In particular, the funny thing, right? I think agents struggle enough with, like, if I'm going to put a Facebook live video out today, is it okay if I just turn my phone around, my makeup, if I'm or if somebody who wears makeup, their makeup isn't right, or their hair isn't right, or they just woke up and they don't look their best, they might feel some trepidation about even pushing that record button. So I know agents struggle to even figure out how to present themselves on social as they are, much less write like a funny sketch. But the reality of it is everybody likes comedy, right? Like you'd almost think there was more of it in this industry, because why not?
Yeah, and it's such a shit show. It's a shit show of an industry. Like, there's so much to make fun of. Like, the things that happen to real estate agents are crazy.
Totally crazy. And I'm just curious on, as our audience oftentimes writes in and asks us questions about, hey, how much should I be promoting on social? And it's not like you're creating sketches daily, right? Like the how much time does it take? Like, for example, the Hallmark sort of movie parody that you did, which was, I don't know, maybe that was 90 seconds or maybe 2 minutes total of content. How much time did you put into producing, shooting it? Like, what was the overall time commitment there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I do two types of videos. I do like stuff that I record myself just
Sure.
from, I have a camera and do that, but I have a production team who does the kind of more in-depth stuff, like that Hallmark video, or Hall Mat, as I called it.
Yeah.
That I don't like to be on location filming for a long time. So
Yeah.
we are so prepared before we go in. So I'll write the script, and the script just, as I give myself a deadline for, I need it done by here, but then I have a Zoom meeting with my video crew for 1 hour, and we storyboard the entire thing. That way I know, okay, we're going to be there for this amount of time. We're shooting these scenes here, here, and here. So there's no him and Han when we get there. I know exactly what I'm going to say. I know exactly what room I'm going to be in. I know exactly what outfit I'm going to be in. So that video took about 2 hours to film,
Wow.
all in, because we're just, and my guys even know, I even tell them we scout the place, or I'll take a picture of the place that we're filming, and they'll know before they go in where they're going to set up the lights, everything. So, like, because I tell them I'm not being on set for fucking 6 hours, man. I'm not Leonardo DiCaprio, right? I have shit to do. So like, so we try and be as productive as possible, and I love doing it. But like, I don't know. To me, it's always been like, I want to hit it when there's that like, I don't want to be overworked on a set to the point where, like, I'm not producing or I'm not acting my best on screen because I'm just not really stoked about it anymore because I've been there for 7 hours.
Yeah, right.
So I try and like strike, like, oh yeah, this is good. Okay, let's go. And like, I want to be there and like hopped up, and I rehearse my lines, like mainly in the shower. Like I'll just rehearse the lines to make sure I know everything and how I want them delivered. And it's like I'm done in 1 or 2 takes. Like, it's not like I don't think much about it. And that's why I think people sometimes they overthink and they do it 20 times, and really they should have just kept the first or second take because that fire was still in them, that they wanted to do it. By the 19th, 20th take, it's not really there anymore. They're not, they're not convicting the way they want to anymore, and that like, how they want to project their whatever they're trying to project. So yeah, I really don't overthink it, and I think that's the best way to do it.
And how quickly, when you started making videos, did you start getting a reaction where you knew how these were landing with your, prospective audience? Like, did it take, was it, you made one video and it just sort of took off, or was it, a slower process?
Yeah. So the first one, I think because in the real estate comedy space, there's really not much going on for video. So pretty much the first one, I had a listing. I did a video. It got picked up by a couple meme places right away. I sold that listing in like 7 hours with
Wow.
3 offers, and 2 of the offers came from the video. And this was, after I was on 2 teams prior to this. I left the last team to go solo, and it was really like my last chance. I wasn't having success, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I might leave the industry. Like, it just wasn't working for me. I had these ideas since I got into the industry. Everyone told me, no, you can't do that. It's not professional. So when I went solo, I was like, you know what? I need to try something. So I just figured, like, I was hemming and hawing so much about it. Like, should I do it? Should I not? Oh, how's this going to look on my brand? If I do something funny, they're not going to like my brand. And then it all clicked one day, and I was like, I'm being so precious about a brand that I don't have. Nobody knows who I am. So
Right.
like, the thing is I could post the video and it could potentially do amazing, or I could post it and, people may not like it, but I could also not post it and just have a lot of the same, which was nothing. So I was like, I'm going to post this shit. And right away, it was like the most engagement I had ever gotten on a post. So then that was enough for me. It didn't necessarily like start bringing in a bunch of business right away, but I had nothing. Nothing was sticking. So at very least, I was getting some traction on social media. So once that happened, I was like, okay, I think there's something here. And I just took the journey down that road and saw what I could get away with. And as it's progressing and growing, there's like, taking more risks, and I'm on that line. Should he say that? Should he not say that? I like to be there. I think comedy should be there, especially in a professional setting. I think that's very funny to say something so shocking, because a lot of the times I try and say what people want to say, but would never say.
Yeah, it makes sense. And so, but even in your first video, you ended up, just from that alone, this wasn't a referral. This was just someone saw the video and then basically hired you.
Yeah. So I did the first video, and then 2 offers came from that video.
Wow.
So I sold the house in the first day, and then it wasn't until my Freddie Mercury video. So that was August 2019 that I did my first video. And then I was, chugging along for a couple months. And then it wasn't until February 2020 that I filmed the Freddie Mercury video. And that's the one that I changed my entire career. So that's the one that got Ryan Serhant to reach out. Like, he commented and stuff. He called me, he said he loved the videos, like shit like that. And that's when things started to, like, people started to notice, and I started getting business from it. And I almost didn't post that video.
Why is that?
I just thought it was too dumb. I was just walking around dressed like Freddie Mercury at Live Aid in someone's fucking house. I didn't know.
And if you haven't, we'll post a link to that video, but if you haven't seen it, Matt looks like 1985, Freddie Mercury doing Live Aid, which is an amazing concert in and of itself. But he is absolutely he's nailed that look, and it's just a brilliant video. So how much time do you spend? Do you have a certain amount of a goal where you try to put out a certain amount of content, every month, or is it just kind of when inspiration strikes, or, how do you decide how much time to put in?
Yeah. So I have a bunch of like ideas in my notepad on my phone. So I kind of know what I'm doing next. I'm not so into the like. I love Gary V, but he's really into like post 5 times a day, 6 times a
Yeah.
day. I don't. That's not for me. That does work for some people, but for me, for what I'm doing, I'd prefer more quality over quantity. So I only want to release something that I am 100% like happy with. So that means sometimes I might miss a week of a video if I just don't think it's there yet. And it's not because like, there has to be a fine line there with like, you know, never posting anything. And then I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but I know when to be like, okay, this is good. But if it's just not there and it's not up to my standard, then I'll just take a week off. So I have a lot of friends who bulk record in the real estate space, and I think that's super beneficial. They'll take one day out of a month and record, 7 to 10 videos, and they have content for the next couple weeks or months, which is awesome. I don't do that. And Eric, the broke agent, doesn't do that because we try and hit on current events as well. So we want to like stay, because we take a lot from pop culture and stuff like that, and we want to bring that in to the real estate space. So I try and like stick on what's relevant, and I want to add that into my videos weekly. But it really doesn't take like as long as people would think. Like, especially I do a lot of these car rants where I just like talk about shit, and those are some of my best performing videos. Like the one I just posted last week got like 365,000 views or some shit in my car. It took 15 seconds. Like that's it. And people don't realize that like that selfie style is super relatable. It doesn't have to be a high quality video as long as the content is there. You could produce a $20,000 video, but if the actual idea and content isn't right, no one's going to care. So yeah, like do whatever, talk about anything. And like, that's what people I think fail to understand. Like people are more interested in you than you might think. And that 15 seconds it took me in my car that day, I actually got a lead from it too. They're coming in April from Australia, and they're using me as their realtor looking for a pretty well-priced home too.
And we should also mention, just for anyone thinking, well, Matt, maybe, maybe his clients, because he uses comedy, maybe he doesn't attract, super high net worth clients who would expect their broker to be more professional and, not as silly and trying, not trying to make people laugh. But Matt works in one of the most expensive real estate markets in the world. He is in Toronto, which is the equivalent for here in the United States of like, it's more expensive actually than San Francisco and New York, or it's certainly right up there, but it's usually more expensive. And so this is not a place where, young people are, buying their first condo for, $300,000. This is a very exclusive place to work in real estate. And Matt is in a sea of other realtors in his area who are that more professional, wearing the suit and projecting that sort of perfect looking image. Certainly not incorporating humor into whatever content they might be producing. So that I think in particular is also really interesting, that, you have this couple coming from Australia. And of course, I don't know much about your traditional sort of types of deals that you do, but you work in a space that is really kind of a high net worth sort of environment. So you are incorporating, being silly, and there's no pejorative with silly. Silly is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest fan of silly, but silly I think is a good way to categorize some of your content. But that being said, it still attracts business to you.
Yeah.
Which
Absolutely.
was that in any way shocking to you? Like, you put it out there, and then all of a sudden, because then you have to turn on the I'm the professional, part of you as well, and service that client. But people absolutely want to relate to people, and I think most people want to be considered funny. And most people, I think, know they're not as funny as somebody who can really sort of put together, a good video, or in your case, a 15-second sort of car thing that maybe also just gets a smile. That's really not always easy to do. So I think people respect quality. And you were saying this earlier, where quality not so much on the production side, not that you don't have great quality, but it's not really the focus as much as is the content. And so people just want to be entertained by quality, right? So whether it's a phone that's been turned around and someone, you're in your car going, oh, you're not going to believe what just happened to me, or whatever. That's, as long as it's good quality 15 seconds, people do relate to that, and they appreciate effort. I've also sort of figured that out. And they also appreciate different type of effort. Like, instead of just saying, look at this new home I just listed, or look at this new, rental I just closed, or whatever, which is what every other realtor does on social, you're more trying to entertain people without sort of bragging about your actual success. And most agents just do the bragging thing, right?
Yeah.
It's here's what I just did. And that really separates you from 99% of the other brokers, I'm sure, in your area.
Yeah. It's that's just was never me. I was very sick of seeing the same thing over and over. And I have some nice things, and I like nice things, and
Sure.
I just don't understand, showing your Starbucks mug with your Rolex and your Mercedes steering wheel, like the subtle flex. Like, I don't, like, I just can't comprehend. Like, okay, so you leased a car. Anyone
Right.
could lease a car. Like, that doesn't mean, like, I have a couple nice watches. That doesn't mean that I have more money than someone without a nice watch. It
Right.
means that I wanted to be an idiot and buy a nice watch, and the other person didn't. Like, I
Right.
don't understand the idea behind that. So it's weird. But yeah, like, Freddie Mercury video got me a $2.5 million buyer last year. They're both two lawyers, two fucking lawyers.
Right. Who, by the way, another profession that doesn't play a lot in the humor space.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I drove them around in my Kia, my fucking Kia Forte, because I don't give a shit about cars either. And that's when I think you're a real success. You can sell a buyer $2.5 million house from dressing as Freddie Mercury and driving them around in a 2012 Kia Forte. I must be fucking talented as well. I don't know if it's just me, but there's no gate. I was wearing Ramones shirts. There's nothing, no hide in there. So, like, yeah, I just never got it. I never got that. And I think people also, you were saying they appreciate quality, but they also appreciate risk. I think they
Yeah.
really do appreciate risk. And I do take risks with the content. And, I was talking to someone way back, and he was saying, like, I was telling him what I wanted in the industry. Cause I'm very into like law of attraction and things like that. And I journal every night, and I kind of knew this. It's weird. It sounds fucking weird, but I kind of I know this stuff was going to happen, because this is what I said I wanted to do the whole time. I wanted to be a big, I wanted to, like, create a presence in the industry, and I wanted to, like, maybe drive the needle a little bit in a different direction, and just kind of like, also said I was going to speak with Ryan Serhan, and I like all this other stuff, and just kind of, it's been unfolding. And I was telling him, like, I want to be a big agent. I don't want to just be like a top producer who he sells a lot of homes and that's it. I mean, I was like, I want to be like a global agent, like Ryan Serhan or some of those
Yeah.
other people. And he was just saying, like, there's just in Toronto, he was like, there's like 60,000 agents here. Like, and he was saying, how are you going to stand? He was laughing. How are you going to stand out from all them? He said, say you go to a concert and there's those 60,000 people there, and how are you going to stand out and get the business? How are you going to stand out at that show to get business? And he was laughing. And I said, well, I'll be the show. And he said, what? I said, well, I'll be the fucking show. So who's everyone's eyes on when they're at the concert? On the show.
Yeah. The performers.
So I'll be the show.
Yeah.
And I'll stand out. And maybe I won't get all the business, because people aren't going to like what I do sometimes. And that's fine. But at least I'll make the noise and get the opportunity to be seen. because people are trying to please everybody with their content, and they're just, I can't tell fucking agents apart anymore. I swear to God, I go to 10 agents pages and I don't know who any of, like, I couldn't tell you the difference between them. And that's, that's fine if you want to. There's tons of people who don't utilize social media and they still crush it with calls and door knocking, and that's fine. But I'm saying, if you want to start getting business off social media, like, you got to take a bit of risk, and that's not swearing on camera or being funny, but you got to do something a little different, because you got to create the opportunity for yourself to be seen. And the only way to do that is by doing something a little bit different than everyone else.
Yeah, I think it's through value. I think by, servicing your audience in whatever way that fits with your authentic self. And in your case, it's clear that I think we're talking about authenticity. And I think when agents stop thinking about how do I please everyone, for example, on social, which is a great sort of example, because agents are, of course, they're afraid to say something controversial because, yeah, they're worried about how their audience might react. But the audience really just wants to be entertained. And that could be through high quality information. It could be through education. It could be through comedy, music. But I think that's what you're talking about is finding whatever is authentic to you and being willing to talk about it, whether it's real estate related or maybe not even real estate related. Like, whatever passion you might have outside of real estate, that could be your content. And it may or may not land with your overall, the majority of your audience, or you'll get feedback and you'll find out if it's a good idea or not. But people do want, we are so hungry for authentic communication, and so we want to know who the person is. We want to know what they're about, what they're into.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, if all of our listeners and viewers take that away, is like, be willing to share who you really are. If you are promoting yourself on social, if you are putting out, content, whether it's written or video or any type of content. If it's just the email, the monthly email newsletter that you send out to your sphere of influence that you probably didn't even write. Like, no one's reading that. Now, it's not a bad idea to send something, if better than nothing, I guess. But like, why not talk about something that you care about in there? Or, I'm sure those probably drive you nuts too, just those standard, real estate newsletter emails.
Yeah, I get so many of those too. It's like every one I do a deal with, now I'm on their newsletter. Like,
yeah,
I'm
they just
buying a house
add you.
from you. Yeah. Like, I don't know why I'm on that list, but 100%, like, bring your passions to the forefront. Like, it's great to show accolades, but like, when you're up against 3 other agents in a listing appointment, so many people hang their hat on their number of sales and stuff like that. And to me, it's so odd, because there's only one person in town who has the best amount of sales, the most sales.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the most, if those people really are analytical and care about the number of sales you do, you better have the most fucking sales.
Yeah, right.
You can say, I've done 20 sales.
Yeah.
Well, if the other person comes in and has done 30 sales, you've now lost everything.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
The thing is, if you show that accolade, I've done 20, I've sold 20 homes, and it's me and you in this listing appointment, then there's someone else. Okay. And these sellers, I use this analogy all the time. These sellers love horseback riding. Okay. I sell 20 homes. You sell 30 homes. This other person sells 5 homes, but they fucking love horseback riding. I would say 95% of the time, the horseback rider is going to relate and get the listing. That's just what it is.
So what we're talking about is putting out content that's authentic to you, and whatever your version of horseback riding is in your own personal life as a realtor, whether it's, something you do outside of real estate or something that you incorporate into your business. Don't be afraid to share that, because you're absolutely right. And I used to own a horse many, many years ago. I was in a relationship with somebody who was a horseback rider, and she did a lot of competitions and things. So that's a perfect example, because we would meet people occasionally that was like, oh yeah, I used to be into horses, and I wasn't really a horse person, but I would watch her connect with these other, even though it was a very tiny part of her life, actually. Yes, you're right. People want to connect with people who have passion and interest, and maybe even the same passions and interest. And comedy is a great one because it's a universally sort of loved experience, right? Most of us, there's a lot of endorphins that get released. There's some obvious reasons why we like comedy. It's stress relieving, all of that. But I just love the fact that you're willing to sort of be yourself and authentic and silly. And it's not an act, right? Like, yes, you're playing characters and you're writing skits, but that's authentic to who you are. That's what you like to do. And as a result, yeah, even in a Ramones t-shirt and, a 2012 Kia, you're closing million plus dollar deals because people go, oh, I want to work with that guy. That guy seems fun. And then of course you have to make sure that you do a good job, of course, which you do. But that gets people to go, that guy's got my interest.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're not going to attract maybe the person who goes, oh, I don't want somebody who's that silly, right? Or that, and that's okay because they probably weren't going to go with you anyway, right? So the idea of just attracting people who like what you are into, and there's so much business for everyone, really. So you can be your authentic self. I mean, maybe if you lived in a tiny little rural community that was more conservative, maybe comedy might not be the best idea. But for most of us who live in an area where it's somewhat densely populated, like there's so much business out there that you could just be yourself. And, as long as you're being responsible, I think. And, but you're going to just generate those kind of clients. And then you don't have to be as concerned about your image. I bet that's the biggest freedom that you have, is you're just not worried about looking a certain way. I mean, you look perfectly fine. I hope nobody's getting this impression that Matt is some sort of slob. He is not. He is absolutely professional. But you don't really need to make sure that you look a certain way, because that's not what your audience wants.
Yeah. No, I mean, and sometimes I like dressing up in a suit and doing all that shit, but like, yeah, just do whatever I want to do. And it's pretty, a long time ago, I said, when I'm ready to do like when I'm ready to retire from the business, I'm just going to spend my last year dressing and saying everything that I want to say. I just, push that up like 40 years. So I'm just doing it now instead. So, it's been, I just, there's a part that I think you need of just like not giving a fuck.
Right.
And like, I'll go out and someone will be like, you're wearing a leather jacket. That's not professional. Good. I don't give a fuck. What are we doing here then? I like going when I'm in a listing appointment or doing this. Like, I like being in the situation where like, I want your business and I want your listing, but I don't need it.
Right.
And that's where I think things turn for a lot of agents, because at first I did need it and I was being so desperate to get it. And now I can go in more relaxed and be like, listen, I want to help you. I think I'm the best person for the job, but I don't need this. And when I don't need this listing, it means I'm not going to push you to sell for a price that maybe isn't the best price for you. Like, we have that luxury, and like, you can put that spin on it. And I feel like every agent should feel this way. I don't care who I'm up against, in what city, anywhere, I'll win the listing. I feel like I'll be able to connect with someone more than other people. And I think everyone should feel that way. I'm not, I think you should have that level of confidence that I can beat anyone in a listing appointment.
And I think part of that confidence comes from the willingness to put yourself out there on social in the way that you do, which is like, hey guys, this is what's in my head. This is what I'm putting on the screen, and I hope you like it. But if you don't like it, oh well, at least you get a chuckle. But that enables you to say that you guys know who I am, right? They know who they're getting, and that it absolutely works. We all want to work with people that we like. And you're putting out content where people like your content. And so, I'm a huge fan. It's a great place to wrap up. I would love everybody to do a couple of things. First, I want you to visit Matt's website, which is mattlionetti.com. Link in the notes. Also, I want you to subscribe to the Over Ask podcast. everyone's a fan of the Broke Agent. So just subscribe. It is their podcast. Matt's a co-host, and they do all sorts of fun content together as well that they put out on social. But yeah, check out that podcast, be a subscriber. And then of course, we would love for everyone out there to help us continue to grow as well. And there's two ways you can do that. One, by telling one other agent about our show, Keeping It Real. So think of one other agent that you know that could benefit from hearing from producers like Matt, who are really doing unique things that are super cool. And those are the kind of people we interview on our show. Tell them about the show, send them over to our website, which is keepingitrealpod.com. Every episode we've ever done, I think we have 340 episodes or so now. So all of our episodes are there, or if they're a podcast person, just have them pull up a podcast app, search for Keeping It Real, hit the subscribe button. And one last thing, please leave us a review. Whatever podcast app or distribution system you might be listening to us through or watching us, whether it's YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever, Pandora. Let us know what you think of the show, and that helps us continue to improve. So Matt, on behalf of all of our audience, thank you so much for being on our show. This was great. I love authentic people that take risk. That is you. You're obviously having tremendous success being yourself, which in this industry is not as common as probably a lot of people would think. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the courage that you have to do that. And obviously it's working, so even better. So thank you on behalf of our audience for taking time out of your day to be on the show. And then on behalf of Matt and myself, I want to thank our audience for sticking with us throughout this entire show. Please subscribe to Matt's podcast, Over Ask. Again, it's in the notes. And let him know what you think. Visit his website too. He's got a great website that really gives you some more insight into who he is. And it is a non-traditional realtor website, which I love. And the best possible compliment I could give is that is a non-traditional realtor website. It's awesome. So take a look at it. It's in the show notes. Matt, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I loved it.
All right, man. Well, thanks, guys. We'll see everybody on the next episode.